Every single day, your body checks the time thousands of times, and it does not need a single clock, phone, or watch to do it. Long before the first mechanical clock was ever built, ancient humans were tracking time with a precision that modern people rarely appreciate. Most of us assume that without clocks, ancient life must have felt chaotic, directionless, or vague about when anything actually happened. The truth is almost the exact opposite of that assumption. Ancient humans were often more precisely synchronized with time than many people living in modern cities today. So the real question is not whether ancient humans understood time. The real question is how they measured it, obeyed it, and organized entire societies around it, all without a single ticking device. By the end of this video, you will understand the hidden biological clock ancient humans relied on every single day. You will also learn about the massive stone structures some ancient cultures built purely to track time across the sky. And you will discover why modern scientists now believe our artificial relationship with clocks may be quietly working against our own biology. Chronobiology, the scientific study of how living things track time internally, has become one of the fastest-growing fields in modern medicine. Researchers in this field have confirmed that nearly every cell in the human body contains its own internal timing mechanism. This internal system is often called the circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour cycle that regulates sleep, hormones, digestion, and alertness. Later in this video, I will explain how ancient humans lived in almost perfect alignment with this internal clock, often without realizing it existed. I will also walk you through specific ancient structures built thousands of years ago, whose entire purpose was tracking the movement of the sun. And near the end, I will explain why simply removing artificial light for a few hours can partially restore a rhythm your ancestors never had to think about. Many people assume that without visible clocks, ancient humans had no real concept of scheduling or precise timing. Anthropological evidence tells a very different story. Hunter-gatherer societies studied by modern researchers, such as the Hadza of Tanzania, show remarkably consistent daily patterns of waking, resting, and activity. Studies published on Hadza sleep patterns found that their nightly rest was tightly synchronized with sunset and sunrise, varying by only slight margins. This means their bodies were functioning as an incredibly accurate biological clock, tuned directly to environmental light rather than to any device. Imagine a small group of ancient foragers waking not to an alarm, but to the first faint blue light appearing just before actual sunrise. Within minutes, nearly the entire group would be stirring, without any single person needing to wake the others. This was not coincidence, it was the shared circadian rhythm of the group responding almost identically to the same environmental cue. There's something even stranger almost nobody talks about when it comes to ancient timekeeping across the day itself. Beyond simply waking and sleeping, many ancient cultures divided daylight itself into functional segments tied to the position of the sun in the sky. Ancient Egyptians developed some of the earliest known daytime divisions, using shadow clocks that split daylight into 10 working segments. A shadow clock worked by casting a shadow from a raised bar onto a marked surface, allowing shifts in shadow length to indicate rough time. This device required no gears, no batteries, and no moving parts, only sunlight and careful observation repeated over many generations. Similar sun-tracking devices, sometimes called sundials, later appeared independently across Babylonian, Greek, and Chinese civilizations. But here is what most people don't realize about why these ancient cultures needed this level of precision in the first place. Timekeeping was not just about convenience, it was often deeply tied to agriculture, religion, and survival itself. Farming communities needed to know precisely when to plant seeds, since planting too early or too late could destroy an entire season's harvest. Ancient Egyptians closely tracked the annual flooding of the Nile River, using both solar observation and the rising of a specific star called Sirius. When Sirius reappeared in the dawn sky after a period of invisibility, it reliably signaled the coming flood season almost every single year. This event became so important that it helped shape the structure of the entire ancient Egyptian calendar. Imagine a farmer standing at the edge of a field before sunrise, watching carefully for a single star to reappear on the eastern horizon. That single moment of star watching could determine food security for their entire family in the months that followed. This is a striking example of how ancient timekeeping was not abstract or symbolic. It was directly tied to whether people survived or starved. Now let's talk about one of the most impressive ancient timekeeping achievements many people have heard of but rarely understand. Stonehenge, the massive stone monument built in England around 4,500 years ago, appears to align precisely with the summer and winter solstices. A solstice is the point in the year when the sun reaches its highest or lowest position in the sky, marking the longest or shortest day. Archaeologists studying Stonehenge's layout found that specific stones align directly with the sunrise on the summer solstice and the sunset on the winter solstice. Building a structure this large, using stones weighing several tons each, purely to track solar movement shows just how seriously ancient people treated time. This was not a casual observation. It likely took organized labor across many years, possibly generations, to construct with this level of astronomical accuracy. Similar solar-aligned structures have been discovered in ancient cultures across the world, including in Mexico, Peru, and parts of Southeast Asia. This suggests that tracking the sun's movement across the year was not a rare idea, but a recurring human obsession across completely separate civilizations. There's a modern scientific parallel here that researchers have only recently begun exploring in detail. Modern chronobiologists have found that consistent exposure to natural light patterns strongly reinforces a stable, healthy circadian rhythm in humans today. A well-known 2017 sleep study found that campers deprived of artificial light for just 1 week had their internal clocks shift closer to natural sunrise and sunset. In other words, modern humans placed back into an ancient lighting environment naturally resynchronized with the sun, almost automatically. This strongly suggests that ancient humans were not simply guessing about time. Their entire biology was constantly calibrating itself to solar cues. Now here is a myth that deserves to be challenged directly, because it shapes how many people picture ancient daily life. Many assume that without visible clocks, ancient humans lived without any real structure, moving through each day randomly. That assumption ignores just how tightly ancient communal life was organized around shared, repeating rhythms. Meals, work, storytelling, and rest were often tied to specific, predictable points in the day, reinforced daily by the entire group together. Oral tradition itself relied heavily on timing, since certain stories, songs, or lessons were often only shared at specific times of day or specific seasons. This meant that time in ancient societies was not just measured, it was deeply woven into culture, memory, and shared identity. Anthropologists studying traditional societies today have found that many indigenous groups still organize daily life around natural markers rather than mechanical clocks. These markers include the position of the sun, the behavior of certain animals, or the blooming of specific plants at particular times of year. This kind of environmental timekeeping required deep, generational knowledge passed down carefully from elders to younger members of the community. Losing an elder in these societies often meant losing an entire library of seasonal and environmental timing knowledge all at once. But here's the thing that makes all of this deeply relevant to your life today, even with clocks in every room around you. Modern research increasingly shows that constant exposure to artificial light, especially from screens late at night, disrupts the same circadian rhythm ancient humans relied on. Blue light from phones and screens can trick the brain into suppressing melatonin, the hormone responsible for signaling that it is time to sleep. This means many people today are essentially confusing their own internal biological clock every single night without realizing it. Sleep researchers have linked this ongoing disruption to increased rates of insomnia, fatigue, and even long-term metabolic health issues. Public health experts in several countries have begun recommending reduced evening screen exposure specifically to help restore healthier natural sleep patterns. Imagine, for a moment, an ancient hunter-gatherer lying beside a dying fire, watching the stars slowly shift position as the night passes. Their body was gradually preparing for deep, uninterrupted sleep, guided entirely by darkness, temperature, and the natural rhythm of the surrounding environment. Now imagine a modern person lying in bed, phone screen glowing brightly just inches from their face, scrolling long after the sun has already set. The environment has changed dramatically, but the ancient biological clock inside that person's brain has barely changed at all. This mismatch between ancient biology and modern environment is something researchers now refer to as a form of circadian disruption. Understanding this history does not mean modern lighting and technology are inherently bad. They have brought enormous benefits ancient humans never had. But recognizing how precisely tuned our ancestors were to natural time can help explain why so many people today struggle with sleep and energy. So let's bring everything back together and look at what ancient humans actually understood about time itself. Ancient humans did not need mechanical clocks because their internal biological rhythm was already remarkably accurate and finely tuned to sunlight. Devices like Egyptian shadow clocks and sundials allowed early civilizations to divide daylight into consistent, useful segments for work and ritual. Massive structures like Stonehenge reveal that entire ancient societies organized enormous efforts around tracking the solstices and the changing seasons. Star observation, such as the rising of Sirius in ancient Egypt, directly guided agricultural decisions that determined survival for entire communities. Oral tradition and daily communal rhythm reinforced a shared, predictable structure to each day, even without a single visible clock anywhere in sight. Modern science now confirms that human biology still responds powerfully to natural light and darkness, exactly the way it did thousands of years ago. The core lesson is not that we should abandon modern schedules and technology entirely. The lesson is that our bodies still carry an ancient internal clock, one that quietly rewards exposure to natural light and predictable daily rhythm. Small changes, like reducing screen use before bed or spending more time outdoors during the day, can help realign that ancient rhythm even now. Our ancestors did not need a scientific study to understand this. They simply lived by the sun because their survival depended on it. Perhaps the most valuable lesson from their world is that time was never truly invented by clocks. It was only ever borrowed from the sky. If this look into how ancient humans tracked time without clocks changed the way you see your own daily routine, consider subscribing for more. There are many more forgotten practices from ancient and prehistoric cultures that quietly explain patterns we still live with today. If you found this exploration valuable, a like helps this kind of grounded, research-backed history reach more curious minds like yours. And if you know someone who is constantly glued to a screen late at night, sharing this video with them might spark an interesting conversation.